就是你现在回看，在你小的时候，所有关于马术的这些训练，哪一部分对你现在来讲是最宝贵的？
My God, I think that's a really the one thing. It's going to sound wrong, but I think it's taught me how to lose.
但你第一次输的时候是什么时候？你记得吗？ 和马之间
So many, but I think the most important one to me was falling off in the Beijing Olympic Games. You know, 18-year-old boy, the whole thing is a fairy tale, and then.
你用了4年的时间，然后去准备伦敦奥运会，然后你又错失掉了那个机会。
Yeah, 1.6 penalties on the last weekend of the qualifying period. I was really grumpy about it. If you work hard, you can win. Da 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 da, which is true, but it's also sometimes not true. and I don't think we're very good at preparing ourselves for when you lose, for when no matter how hard you try, it doesn't happen. Well, that sometimes is life. Life is not fair. There are so many times where I've spent years preparing a horse for something or preparing myself for something, and then for a factor that I have no control over, it doesn't happen. You can drive yourself crazy by worrying about those things, but I've had to learn to let those things go. And I think I'm a better person because of that.
欢迎收看阳光保险特约名人面对面，专访奥运旗手华天。我和奥运有个约定。巴黎奥运正式开幕了，马术运动员34岁的华天第4次代表中国参加奥运会马术3项赛。
如果是这一次也没有成功的晋级的话，你会很伤心吗？
Yes, I would be, very, very disappointed.
几个月之前，我们在北京访问了华天。当时中国国家马术队参加巴黎奥运会的资格名单还没有公布，华天能否走进凡尔赛宫的马术赛场尚未可知。
My priority always is the Olympics. For a lot of British riders, German riders, American riders, they're aiming for the annual 5-star competitions. And I aim for those too, but really for me, the Olympics is the career priority, and for my supporters as well.
2008年的北京奥运会，华天是第一位参加奥运马术3项赛的中国骑手。
Is in the start box before the cross country, being counted down, 10, 9, 8, 7, blah 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 blah, and seeing Lan Shu, Ha Jiaolian, standing there in the start box cheering me on, and I think that's a memory that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Horses are very emotionally intelligent animals.
是的。好了，我知道你认同。
2016年里约奥运会，华天获得第8名，创下了中国马术选手在奥运赛场的个人最好成绩。
Did you satisfied with that?
It was beyond my wildest dreams.
2020年东京奥运会成为中国马术的又一个里程碑，华天和队友首次获得奥运会团体比赛资格，并最终排名第9。
You finally have the teammates. not fight alone.
Yeah. Yang Ruiji, Song Huadong, Bao Yingfeng, who all did most of their riding here in China. To me, that really represented Chinese equestrian sports taking that next level.
传说他想要参加10届奥运会。
因为你曾经说你想要代表中国参加10届奥运会
Yeah, I don't
which
know
is
who,
40 years.
I'm not sure I said that, but I think it was said on my behalf. I'm not sure who by. I mean, if I make 10, then I'd love to.
华天1989年出生，他的妈妈是英国人，爸爸是中国人。小时候，华天曾经在北京生活，后来去了香港，又去到英国。2024年的初夏，我们在北京的一家马术俱乐部见到了华天。
I came back to Beijing a bit because my father has always lived here in Beijing.
你爸爸现在还住在北京吗？
一般，北京、伦敦。
华天的爷爷华龙义是老延安，是解放军的第一批飞行员之一，是朝鲜战场上的特等功臣，被毛泽东称为孤胆英雄。
你的爷爷是战斗机的驾驶员，他会跟你交流很多吗？比如他以前的经历。
So much, and I remember going to their apartments in Guangzhou, 老机场路, and bowing 饺子 every time with my 奶奶, and 学书法 with my grandfather, and then over dinner listening to my grandfather telling stories about his childhood when he ran away from home and swam across the Yellow River to go to Yan'an, and his time in the Korean War, his time meeting my grandmother in hospital, when he got shot down. He was a very proud man, my grandfather, had a big sense of humor, big laugh, and telling his stories to all of his friends. It's, as a child, looking up to him.
中学时代，华天就读于英国最著名的寄宿学校伊顿公学。14岁，他破格成为国际马术联合会注册的最年轻职业骑手。15岁的时候，华天得到了第一次参加国际马术比赛的机会，他决定代表中国参赛。
因为你15岁的时候就选择代表中国参赛，然后18岁的时候，当然就是奥运会的那一次，也是以中国的身份，然后参加了国际的比赛。你这些选择是你自主的吗？和爷爷的这个有关吗？
This is a very interesting question. I don't think it was ever a question that I would ride for China. From my family's point of view, it was, even for my mother. My mother's obviously English, so I imagine some people in the audience might assume that she would want me to ride for GB. Which is an easy assumption to make, but my mother, you have to understand, is in her heart more Chinese than my father is.
Really?
Yes, she is. Her Chinese is much better than mine, which is very embarrassing. She loves horses. She's always been a part of the industry right from the beginning. She's in Shijingshan when I was a kid with Ha Jiaolian, Liu Yan, Luan Ge, Luan Shu, and that sort of group of people who are really the inception of the sport here in China. She is very proud. She was very proud for me to make the decision to ride for China. But I think for me individually, at that time, I was at Eton, so at the most British place you could ever be in the whole world. And as a half Chinese boy, I think the half Chinese part of me felt like it stood out, and I was very excited to make that decision and to represent China. And it's been, it's a big part of my identity.
Because there are some voices say, if you ride for China, it's more easier for a career. Because in Britain, it's the very established
of course,
whole industry.
For sure. I'm not going to say that that's not the case. It is the case. Of course, there are many, many, many more top British riders, and for me to have ridden for GB would have, in some ways, been much more difficult. But I don't think that was necessarily part of the decision equation for me. I think at that stage, I didn't really, when I was 15 years old, I didn't know I was going to the Olympic Games.
No, you never imagine?
Well, so my mother, the way it goes is when I was like 12 or 13 years old, my mother was a consultant for the bid for the Beijing Olympics. So she helped to coordinate the equestrian part of the bid. And so we always had a family joke that I could represent China at the Olympics. Now, that was never taken seriously.
Why is a joke? It sounds so sad.
Well, yeah, but you're an 11, 12-year-old child. You don't think, in all seriousness,
a long way to go.
That you're going to go to the Olympic Games. Certainly not in equestrian sports, where Olympic athletes are normally in their late 30s, even 40s, or even older. So it was never taken seriously at all. And when I decided to ride for China when I was 15 at my first international competition, it wasn't because I might go to the Olympic Games a few years later, and it wasn't because I wanted to become a professional rider, because at that stage, I hadn't made that decision yet. So when I was 15 and I went to Martinval in France, it was because I wanted to ride for China.
然而，华天的进步让所有人意外。他骑着母亲的一匹名叫孙悟空的马，15岁成为最年轻的国际1星骑手，16岁拿到最年轻的国际2星骑手，17岁晋升为最年轻的3星骑手。华天参加奥运会的玩笑话正在一天天变成现实。
When I was 16, 17 years old, my parents sat down with my trainers, Clayton, Lucinda Fredericks at that time, an Australian couple who were both world #1 at different times in their careers, and sat down with them and said, look, we've always joked about this. The progression is here. Do you think it's possible to do that? And Clayton and Lucinda said, yes, that's, in theory, yes, it is possible, but it's going to take significant resources to be able to achieve that. I would have to leapfrog a huge amount of experience and time, and the only way to do that is to buy the suitable horses to be able to help me to do it. And actually, a big part of being able to achieve that was right here in Xiwu, would have been 2007.
代表中国参加北京奥运会，最大的难题是没有合适的运动马。一匹高水平运动马的价格高达数十万英镑，骑手一般要准备5、6匹运动马才能顺利参赛。得知这个消息后，中国各界筹措资金为华天购买运动马。 总共募集了2800万元，终于让18岁的华天如愿以偿，在2008年走进设在香港的北京奥运会马术赛场。
I heard Liu Xiang, Zhang Yining, they all involved to raising fund for you as well.
Yes, and I'll always remember Ha Jialian auctioned his first gold medal from the National Games to help support me. I don't think the Olympic movement will ever see the level of excitement that Beijing 2008 represented. It was very special. Hey. Okay.
哈达铁是华天的启蒙教练，也是改革开放后中国第一批马术运动员，曾获得全运会冠军。
小的时候跟我妈妈一起，跟哈教练、栾哥、刘燕都在一起 ，very like family.
Because in our mind, you are like born in a very strong background family. So other people to raising fund for you is like out of our understanding. Is that a normal thing to do?
I think so. To be honest, it's in the equestrian world. Raising support from around you, from people inviting and welcoming people to be part of your journey, both as friends but also financially as supporters, is very much a part of the sport, and an unapologetic part of the sport. We, as a rider, whether you're from a wealthy family or from a strong background or this or that, no single family could support that by themselves, I don't think, not at that level. And also you need that community and you need that support behind you to be able to do it. You need to be able to rely on other people's shoulders, not just your own, to be able to do it. And that's not just from a financial point of view, that's from a experience and emotional point of view as well.
因为听起来很幸福 you don't need to involve to raising the money for you, especially when you're really young, at 17 years old. But now, do you need to involve like raising money and everything?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that? Or you think it's part of the job? I need to do that.
It's very much part of the job. I do also enjoy it. I meet, my horse owners are all incredible people, and the partners that I have, the brands that I work with, it's all part of the landscape that you have to build as a rider. As a rider, and I think this was very much instilled into me by Ha Jiaolian, but also Clayton, Lucinda Fredericks, my coaches for the Beijing Olympics. I grew up with these people, seeing these riders not only working hard in the arena, but working even harder outside the arena to support what you need for the arena. and I think for me that was a big reason why even during and after the Beijing Olympic Games, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to be a professional rider, because I saw how hard financially and emotionally it was for all of my mentors through my childhood. Don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful way of life. I wouldn't change it for the world. I love my horses, I love the sport, I love the life that I lead. But I miss many, many family occasions all the time. I miss weddings and funerals and important occasions in my life and those close to me. I never travel places that I want to travel to. I only get to do things that I have to do right now. And I never have weekends off, and I haven't had a holiday for 2-3 years. Which you have to, when I was making the decision whether I wanted to do this or not properly, that was all part of the equation.
欢迎收看阳光保险特约名人面对面，专访奥运旗手华天。我和奥运有个约定。2008年北京奥运会的马术赛场设在香港，越野赛场上，华天给马发出了一个错误指令，下一个瞬间他就已经摔落马下。
Back to the 2008 Olympic game, we talked about when you fell off. 那一刻你心里是什么感受？
Oh God, I think I went through the 5 stages of grief in about a minute.
Oh wow!
Definitely.
The chicken goose.
Well, the beginning was total denial. I couldn't accept in my head that I've just fallen off in front of millions of people watching during this, fairy tale that was supposed to be the Olympic Games. Total denial. And then also really just so angry with myself. So angry, because it was a real stupid mistake. For me, the hardest thing was then the realization that actually it wasn't just my hard work that went into it.
The whole community.
The whole community, everybody here, my parents, my team, the grooms, my coaches, Clayton, Lucinda, Mr. Jiang, everybody who'd invested so much into it. Then I thought, oh God.
Such pressure.
I'm not really a crier, but I did have a little sob.
How long it spends for you to really get off?
I don't really know. I think probably, to be very honest, probably until Rio Olympics to really feel like I'd 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah. I think for me to really feel like I have proven to myself and to everybody else that actually I can do it.
My. Oh, how about your grandpa? He must be like really proud of.
Oh, it's amazing. My grandfather, you know, he has.
Did he talk to you through?
Yes, I think a little bit. I think, to be honest, I'm not. Probably from my side, I'm not a huge emotional sharer. I tend to manage those things a little bit by myself. But you know, my grandfather certainly was always, I think, what he represented, what his stories represented, I think what his generation represented was like, my goodness, Alex, you know, you've fallen off at the Olympics, it's not that bad.
True.
Yeah.
Just
puts things into perspective. Yeah,
on.
exactly. You know.
Oh. Yeah, so he must be like really happy for you.
Tremendously proud. He was tremendously proud. And you know, again, he was one of those people that loved to tell his stories in front of all of his friends. So then it just having my story to add to that, I think, just made him even happier.
Oh.
We pick up the poo. Yeah. So I'll do the first one.
马术运动充满了大悲大喜，华天称之为情感过山车。北京奥运会之后，华天回到伊顿公学完成了学业，然后又报考了大学。直到打包行李的那一刻，他突然发现自己不可能兼顾大学学业和马术事业。最后，他放弃大学，专心投身马术。
I always had tremendous confidence and hope that it was just a matter of time before I got back there again. I think no matter how, you know, Beijing went, no matter how London went, I always had the confidence that just a bit more time and this would happen.
Where's the confidence come from?
Well, that's what I'm starting to think about now.
Good.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that question
You
because I was like,
right
oh. Where does that confidence come from? I don't know. I think I'm an eternal optimist. I think I'm a big believer that you have everything within you to shape your own destiny. And I think the lessons that I've learned, you know, as a child growing up with horses, but through the process of the Beijing Olympic Games, through the process of London, you know, I really felt like I was starting to develop the skills that I needed to put everything that I needed in place. I think I have a huge amount to thank my parents for their support, because, you know, their support was not only in, you know, providing me with my first horse and my riding lessons and this and that, but they are tremendous enablers. You know, my mum drove around for many years, taking me to Pony Club camp and taking me to my first competitions. She was my first groom, and my dad, you know, is there spending his time and his energy talking to people, trying to help them support me. And I think the confidence that you get as a child from your parents in that way is very, very important. And finally, I think the most important thing, again, to thank my parents, is that they allowed every decision to be my decision. And I think for me, and I, you know, hopefully I can translate to other children as well, is I think if you allow your child to own that decision themselves, and you're not doing something because your parents are telling you to do it, or your teacher's telling you to do it, or somebody else is telling you, you're not doing it for somebody else, you're doing it for yourself, then you feel like you have agency, and you also feel like you have the power to make that decision, and then you have your own responsibility. And I think that's a big part of it.
很多年来，华天尽力让更多人了解马术。华天不认为马术是贵族运动，他更愿意提倡马术蕴含的骑士精神。他鼓励青少年接触马术，不仅仅骑在马上，还要走进马厩，懂得马房管理。只有这样，才会有人马一心的时刻。
Well, this is the thing that makes me terribly sad. Is sometimes I go to riding schools. It's not just in China; it's also other places as well. The child from the family who does golf on the Monday and then riding on the Tuesday. You know, the child arrives, the Ma Gong brings the horse, the child gets on, never even looks the horse in the eye, gets on. To be honest, the child looks like he or she has a very uncomfortable half an hour, and then gets off the horse, straight in the car, and poof, home. And I think for me, it's very sad for the child, very sad for the parents. Also, I think it's very sad for the stables and the horse.